Well, Rhett, you've been at Duluth East now for 12 seasons. Tell us about that experience from that first year to now this 12th year. What have you learned? What's been a great takeaway?
Well, 12 years goes by very quickly. It's been an honor. My dad used to take me to Section 7 AA games back in the day in the early and mid 90s. And Duluth East was year after year kind of in those championship games. And I remember watching some games at the old deck up in Duluth and at UMD, those championship games. And I remember thinking, like, man, it would be cool to coach at Duluth and live in Duluth and coach at Duluth East, because I love the city. And Duluth East was the top dog at the time. And then, played basketball at UMD from 06 to 11. Spent a year away coaching in Owatonna with Josh Williams and his staff down there, which was one of the best learning experiences as a young coach that one could get. And then very fortunately got the job in 2012. So it's fast. It's crazy how fast it goes. We've kind of had to build our program kind of the traditional way of really trying to build a good feeder program. When I got up there in 2012, there was no traditional feeder program, so we've had to work our way up. And there's, as kind of like my dad mentioned earlier, there's ups and downs, and there's peaks and valleys, and learning how to manage both of those, I think, is crucial. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's good to cherish each moment that you get with the kids and families that you coach, and just work really hard and hope for the best.
You almost have to be a salesman when you're up at Duluth East, because you're trying to pull away from that hockey program.
Yeah.
So how do you get those athletes and focus on, hey, the value of basketball?
It's been a challenge to coach at a traditional hockey powerhouse. But one thing that I tell my dad a lot is that I think it's easier to coach at a hockey school than a football school, because then you're not really competing for athletes. The competition becomes what athletes can you get at the youngest age possible. So it's tough. One of the things that we do is have a lot of youth opportunities. I've written a bunch of postcards to kids where I see an aspiring young athlete, but he's wondering if he should quit hockey or maybe come to basketball after his fun time at camp. And I fire out postcards about how great it would be if he played basketball. But there's some challenges there too. But whoever shows up, you only need 5 guys on the floor at once. So it's the hockey program and we get along really, really well.
So talk to me about that McDonald's map of coaching in terms of how do you progress talent and the team as a whole and increase the effectiveness from the start of the season to the end?
I think that with all of the McDonald's and the coaching tree, there are obviously some nuances and we do some things differently, but I think the one thing that kind of goes back to my grandfather is that there seems to be a huge importance of discipline. There seems to be a huge importance of commitment and taking advantage of opportunities when they're there. And I think when it comes to that skill progressiveness piece, I think it's showing up in the gym, doing the things that you've been taught. And I think discipline is a word that's misunderstood. Sometimes when you hear the word discipline, you think that means this. Well, for us, I think discipline simply means just doing the things you've been taught and doing what you do. And for us, it's giving kids ample opportunities to get in the gym and work with them is something that we've all had to do. My dad and I being some of the smaller 4A schools and having to do things a lot differently in terms of trying to get kids involved in basketball and develop their talent. We have to spend a ton of time in the gym. There's not a lot of trainers up in Duluth. There's not a lot of trainers in Cambridge. If they do, they're traveling some ways. Forest Lake's probably in that boat a little bit too. So those families rely on us to give them a bunch of opportunities. And I think my dad knows this best. We take a lot of time away from our own families. And sometimes I have to spend less time with my own kids and spend time with everyone else's. So I know that my dad would say this too. We're blessed with spouses that are also very important, and they understand why we love this game and their role in this too, because they're just as important as we are.
Do you have a particular moment in mind in which sticks out to you as a coach?
There are so many moments actually that sticks out to me as a coach, whether it's on the floor in a practice or just enjoying my time with players and coaches. Honestly, one of my favorite times on the floor was actually losing to my dad's team in the section final in 2020, and why it was so bittersweet was because we had two very good teams. I think both of us had won 24 games at that point. But it was also on the cusp of everything shutting down. And I think in the back of our minds, we knew that there would likely be no state tournament. And so what was fun about that game is that everyone left everything on the floor. Fans, coaches, managers, you name it. It was just a different energy in the building that night. And just to have that experience of being in a section championship against your dad and your whole family's there, and even though we lost, it was such a cool moment. I think the best thing about sport is relationships, and I have learned that one of the best things is it doesn't really matter if you win, lose, draw in your season. Obviously, you want to win. The best thing is these long-term relationships with your players and families. And when you finish a season or a career with kids on a good note, I'm not talking winning and losing. They have your back the rest of the way. And I've been blessed with some really, really good friendships with people that used to be on my team, but now they're in their 20s and getting close to 30 already.
That's great, and sounds like it's a great culture with each team and what you develop. I got to hear, what would you do on Saturday nights if you weren't at the basketball court as a family? Is there a board game, Battleship, Monopoly, something you guys did as a family?
I don't know if we can say it out loud on camera.
Oh, yes.
We hang out when we're together. We like to get in the hot tub at their place and just talk about anything really non-basketball related.
Right.
Sometimes we do talk a little bit of shop, not about really X's and O's, but more like, hey, I'm dying for a new shooting drill. Like, what do you got, sort of thing. That's what we do. We do play cards. We like to have fun. Humor is, and I think this is a Grandpa McDonald thing, humor is a staple in our family. And I have uncles that have made me laugh so hard I cry. And I think that that's tied into our personal family as well.
What do you have for long-term goals? Obviously, your father's set a tough path to match, going into the Hall of Fame here in a couple of weeks. But what about yourself? Is it continuing at high school, or is a collegiate opportunity? What are your goals?
I think that my number one goal is to really be as healthy as possible. You know, this job, sure, sometimes I allow it to take, it wears on you if you allow it to. And so that's been this balancing act, right? So we can talk specific goals, but like when I end the season and I'm in a good spot mentally and physically, I think that's considered a win. I would love, and I tell my basketball players this all the time, Duluth East has been to 4 state championships and never have won it. We want to win a state championship one year. And if that happens, I'm not sure I'll be the happiest guy on earth if that does happen. But that's kind of the overall goal we're looking towards. And if you're not trying to fight for a state championship, you know why are we here? You know, so sort of thing. I think one thing that I learned of being an assistant coach for a decent program, a good program in Owatonna, was I enjoyed the heck out of it. You went home and you didn't have to deal with the emails or the complaints. You weren't always the mean guy. The kids loved you. I really loved my time as an assistant coach. I would love to be an assistant coach at a college level, probably. Long-term goal when I retire from teaching. It would be great to be just sit on a Division III bench, and with guys that you know they're in your program because they love it, and they're not scholarship athletes. They're busting their tail because they love the game of basketball, and those are the type of guys that I would love to be associated with.
Hey, congratulations on your success and the success ahead of you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.